Today we are going to be reviewing the My Father Le Bijou 1922. One of my favorites. Had it many times. Various vitolas. Anyway, let's open it up. It is triple banded. Great sweet smell. Very cocoa-y on the end. It is triple banded. Foot band and 2 body bands. My Father's are done by Garcia and Garcia. And there's actually the 3 of them. There's Jaime, there's Janny, and then there's Don Jose Pepin Garcia. So anyway, Le Bijou is French for the jewel, and the significance of 1922 is basically the day that Jose Pepin's father was born. So this one is in honor of his father. Great chocolatey aroma. Hint of barn. Now the cigar is made from Habanos seed. It is a Nicaraguan puro. The wrapper itself is a double Oscuro. It's 5.5 inches long and ring gauge of 55 millimeters. Just a shot of the band there. Anyway, it's got a little, very small pieces of toothing showing up. Other than that, it's fairly smooth, tight roll, some large visible veins, triple cap. Anyway, cut it, toast it, get to know it. No resistance on the pre-draw. Very actually light notes coming off. Bit of a zing on the filler from the tongue. Dark chocolate, cocoa. And some hay. Anyway, so Jose Garcia was born in 1950 in Cuba. And when he was 11, he started working on in his uncle's factory, which happened to be a tobacco factory. And from there, basically started his career in the tobacco industry. So, almost there. So, this was a man who spent 30 years of his life perfecting the art of cigar rolling and blending. Beautiful. some notes of nut, hay, dark espresso. Spicy through the retro. Some pepper in there as well. Black pepper for sure. So, Pepin, like I said, was spending time perfecting his rolling techniques. And received the highest class, or ranking class of torcedor, which is your cigar roller. And that was a Class 8 master. He also was a blender. And he was working for the Felix Rodriguez factory in Havana, or in Cuba. And he had at one time he had sat down and rolled 320 Julietas, basically Churchill size. It's just one ring gauge thicker. Okay, so it's 7 inches by 48 instead of 47. But 320 of those suckers in 4 hours. That is impressive. Just goes to show you the technique and the talent he's got. So, bit of almond in there. Some coffee. Yeah. So, along with that, the level 8 torcedor master, he was also given another certificate, and that was the Tabaquero Maestro. Now, the Tabaquero Maestro is basically your master blender. So not only was he a master roller, he was also a master blender. And because of his success, he also ended up teaching both rolling and blending as well. And he was, you don't understand, he was really big in Cuba. And he pretty much rose to almost as high as he can go. He helped blend cigars like Cohiba, some of the Cohiba blends. You know, they had their blends, so to speak, of that particular taste and that, and he helped perfect those, as well as help to sort out the blendings as well, right? So Cohiba, he helped out with Partagas and Monte Cristo. So to work with those companies, obviously he's doing something right. And he was in charge of quality assurance as well. He knew his stuff. You know, that's what he was credited for. And also worked consulting with other Cuban cigar makers and factories. So He left Cuba in 2001. Went to Nicaragua. And then later ended up in Miami, Florida. Now, he, with the help of his children and another gentleman, they helped start up a cigar factory. Now, the gentleman who helped them out, so there's the three Garcias and this other gentleman. Now, who was that gentleman? That was Eduardo Antonio Fernandez. Now, I don't know, it's unclear whether or not maybe he fronted Pepin the money or just they were agreeing or in agreement to be, but Fernandez owned 50%, and the other 50% had to be split up between the three Garcias. So you can imagine how much. Sorry, I'm just going to touch this guy one side out. Just lightly brush it, just to help. That was off the initial light. That was my fault. I don't think it had anything to do with construction. Anyway, you saw me do it. So, because the three Garcias had to split the 50% of the company in threes, they basically, Fernandez helped Pepin get this company started. Okay, that company was the El Rey de las Habanos company, and after that was started up, down the road, Pepin and his two kids decided to basically go off on their own and open up their own cigar factory. And from there, they left Fernandez. So Pepin and his kids, they obviously were doing what they loved, but they weren't doing it for the reasons they wanted, and which was pretty much to open up their own factory and run it themselves. No other hands involved. And they weren't, obviously making the money that they wanted to. It's only human nature. So they basically left Eduardo Fernandez, and from there went and started their own factory. And they did that in Nicaragua. And the name that they came up with for their factory was the Tabacalera Cubana S.A. Tabacalera Cubana S.A. Taquiba for short is what it's also known as. And that ended up being established in 2006. By the time it was up and running, things take time. Factory takes time to get built, etc. Employees, the works. So, now, the factory he built was larger than the one that he had with Eduardo Fernandez. That factory, the El Rey factory, was able to contain up to 62 employees and rollers. The new one that he built can employ up to 110. So right there, big jump. Almost doubles the amount of rollers. You can only imagine how much more work that they could put out. So because it can sustain up to 110 rollers, it can produce up to 9 million cigars. And you know, some of the people that they had when he was working at the El Rey factory had jumped ship come with him and moved over to his factory. And his very first contract outside his own family or his own brand was Pete Johnson of Tatuaje. And but now something else happened though. Back in 2010, you know, sometime after, you know, their factory was established, Eduardo Fernandez sued Don Jose Pepin Garcia and the Garcias. Now, what they were suing him for was basically it was a breach of contracts. Okay, so it was a breach of fiduciary duties. It was conspiracy to commit said duties, as well as aiding and abetting those duties. So basically, breach of contract, for the Garcias. And the aiding and abetting was basically, now I'm not a lawyer, so pardon my terminology, but from what I can gather is the aiding and abetting is for taking another company or another brand, another contract away with them. So anyway, whether or not that's settled, I don't know. That was in 2010. And now Takiba is basically known as, sorry, bumped the ash off, my fault. Takiba is basically now known as My Father Cigars. So, you know, Pepin basically did what he set out to do. You know, he had excelled in the country he grew up in and was born. Couldn't get any higher because everything's nationalized. So it's almost like he could never own his own. So he fled. Was able to start something up elsewhere in another country. And basically made the jump, broke the chains, all ties with anybody. And tried to sever them and went and fled to another country and started his own. So is it wrong what he did? Depends on your view. From a business standpoint, okay, I can see the negative aspects. But to achieve his goals, sometimes you got to sever ties to do that and take the risk. I give him respect for doing that. You know, that's what it's all about. So, we got the good spice. Pepper subsided. Still have those coffee notes. They've died off a little bit on the chocolate and the cocoa. Started to mellow out now, coming into the transition into the second. It's getting really good now. So, come 2012, My Father brand made Cigar Aficionado's lists with the #1 cigar being the Flor de las Antilles. And they also had made the list as being a blender for the Tatuaje brand, which was Pete Johnson's. Then 2015, they made #1 again in Cigar Aficionado with the Le Bijou 1922. So he's in there in ranks of the best, some of the best, for being just a blender, as well as his own brand. Hey, that's great news. What more can you ask for, right? And, you know, after that, he had companies, you know, coming to him wanting to blend the cigars for them, and some small, some very large. He had a company by the name of Ashton approach him, and they teamed up to do a few blends, and he did the non-Cuban version of San Cristobal. So for any of you who are a fan of that cigar, there you go, Pepin did that one. And it's funny because of that, people think often that it's more, well, that it's his cigar and that it's from him, but technically it's Ashton that owns it. So I'm going to leave you here. I'll be back at the end of the second, and we'll review that. See you then. We are back. I had to remove the second band, and I had to knock the ash fell off on me on puff, but it was nice, charcoaly gray, very Cuban-esque. Had notes of cocoa in there that came and went, bit of cinnamon, some oak came through as well. Smoke output's been great. Huge plumes. There's been the real dark, like real strong espresso that came through, and that very Nicaraguan, you know, that burn through the nose on the retro is still there. Not as bad as some, but it's still there, and you know, you can't help think, but it's kind of like that guilty pleasure, you know, where it's like eating hot wings. They're hot, you know they're hot, and you know, your face is on fire, your mouth is burning, and sweat's coming out the pores of your cheeks and off your brow and everything else like that. So you know, you kind of have that, but you keep eating it, you know, because you love it. Same thing goes with the retrohale, you know, it burns a bit, but it's a guilty pleasure, I guess. Strength's picked up. Doesn't usually get heady until around this area. You know, I'm feeling it, but I'm not woozy or nothing like that. Some almond was in there as well, but a lot of oak came through. Dark chocolate subsided, but it's got, you know, like that espresso coffee note I like. Anyway, I will leave you here and be back for the final third and my final thoughts. Stay tuned. Okay, well, ash fell off. Sorry. Held on great. Big chunk came off. Almost nubbin status here. Great burn all the way through, good construction, good combustion, great draws. Notes picked up of more wood, real deep earth came through. The the head on it, you know, peeled a bit, but I've been chewing on it. You know, tuck it between the teeth, whatever. Would I buy a box? Absolutely. In fact, when I can, as soon as I can, I'm going to grab one. My next trip across the border, anyway. Great company. I've accomplished a lot in a short period of time, more than a lot of the other big names, with only a few generations. So still had the coffee. Great bouquet. Nice smoke coming off of it. Really a amazing, in my opinion, boutique brand. One to definitely be reckoned with. You have to try one if you haven't. And if you have, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. So, I'm going to leave you here. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, join the creed. I'm JJ, and see you then.